information brochures and whatever for Colwood. So we did have a presence. Anyone else?
Did you mention the library open house?
No, that's for you.
So just a quick reminder that there's a library open house on Saturday, December 10th from 2 to 4 at the Juan de Fuca branch. Basically, the open house is at every branch, but they're trying to encourage councils to attend their local branches.
Are you dressing up as an elf?
I will be there as something. We're not sure what yet. Something cool.
Anyone else?
Or something.
All right, we shall move on. Looking to adopt 2 sets of minutes this evening. Regular meeting of council November the 14th and the public hearing minutes of November 23rd.
So moved.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. A number of minutes to receive. Emergency Planning Committee of September 20th. Planning and Land Use Committee meeting on October 18th. Protective Services on September 21st. And public hearing report on November 23rd.
Move for receipt, Your Worship.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. There are a couple of pieces of correspondence. The first being a letter from Reid James, Chairperson of the Hotel Association of Greater Victoria, looking for a letter of support to request the province to rescind the Provincial Tax Regulation 78(1)B. You all have the letter in your agendas, and it has to do with the fact that with the advent of short-term rentals in various communities, particularly those in high-end tourism, it impacts staff for those resorts and subsequent tourism type attractions to find suitable accommodations. Comments from council? Recommendations forthcoming? Councillor Day?
Thank you. Just happened to catch on CBC Radio that University of Victoria did a course on Airbnb and vacation rental by owner, and they had a much larger than anticipated turnout, including people coming to Victoria from White Rock and Surrey and Burnaby and throughout the Lower Mainland to hear about what the issues are with Airbnb and other similar platforms. And they had a panel who presented, including an insurance broker and an accountant, and there were a number of implications for homeowners who might participate in a service such as Airbnb. In terms of it could even impact whether or not their accountant reported it could impact your ability to claim capital gains because you're claiming that your house is your residence, but if it's actually your business, that changes a lot of implications tax-wise. So it's affecting people who might participate and might unknowingly put themselves in a category with some risks that they might never have identified before, as well as creating competition for hotels that, of course, pay their appropriate tax rates, and also, of course, as you mentioned, the inability to have as many long-term rentals when short-term renters are taking up those spots.
Council direction is Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I feel as though this is actually quite a complicated matter. It's just not a matter of saying that I would be supportive or not supportive of writing a letter like they request. I would actually prefer to actually, and I'm not usually a big fan of this, but sending it to staff for a recommendation, because I think it actually can have some consequences to us locally here within the municipality.
Second.
Any conversation on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next letter is actually just for information, the Greater Victoria Public Library 2015 Annual Report. Councillor Martin,
Sorry.
anything to say?
No. The annual report. No, I don't. Sorry, I didn't prepare any speaking notes. I guess the only thing to say is the biggest disappointment with the library right now and the struggle that we have is from a funding model standpoint, it doesn't leave us a lot of money for collections itself. The majority of our money is being spent obviously on staffing and programming and all those type of things, but our actual collection to renew the collection and to bring in newer collections is quite limited. So we are controlling the budget, but I would actually love to, down the road, be able to actually look at perhaps increasing our requisition to the library just so that we can increase some of the collections. But right now, as you can see, the annual report is quite thorough, and it's also the library is doing quite well. The biggest struggles right now is we are looking at opening a new branch in Esquimalt, just replacing the old building. We're also looking at putting a library in James Bay. And just so that, just as a reminder, everybody should know that the municipality that it resides in is responsible for all the capital costs. So that this doesn't actually affect Colwood taxpayers at all as we move forward.
Thank you. Need motion to receive?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5.3, email correspondence from Francesca Loro from Peninsula Stream Society. Again, there is a letter of request. I did ask that this be sent to them in regards to our grant funding for any money requests, and I'm not sure where that stands, but Langford did contribute $500. But they're actually, at this point, asking for a letter of support to a grant application to Fisheries and Oceans to design and construct a fish ladder at the Atkins Road culvert on Millstream. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I think the fish ladder and the benefits that it has brought were actually begun to be constructed around the time I was first elected to this council. So I do remember hearing quite a bit about this, and I think it's a very worthwhile initiative because it's supporting lots of the raptors who live in that area that many of our parks along the creek are visited by. So some of our park residents will benefit from the fish in the creek. And I would suggest that we also recommend that they contact View Royal because View Royal also has a municipal granting process, and the creek does flow through Langford and View Royal, touches briefly into Colwood, but I think that they would likely find some interest there as well.
Making a motion, Councillor Day.
I will move that we write a letter of support.
Seconder? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Transportation and public infrastructure. This is 6.1.1, Capital Regional District looking for motion of support to the establishment of a regional transportation service. The motion that they suggest is in the letter that is attached to our agenda. Council. Councillor Day.
Thanks. I'm just thinking how to word it. I think that we should let them know that we respectfully decline to participate at this time, and hope that they will consider many of the recommendations, especially around governance structure, that were discussed at our Committee of the Whole meeting earlier tonight.
Any further conversation, discussion on that recommendation? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into protective services, item 6.2.1, recommendation from fire department's mutual aid agreements. We have them all before us. I understand these are extensions. Councillor Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The fire department has been looking at the mutual aid agreements that had expired between ourselves and our neighboring municipalities, and the fire chief has negotiated extensions to the existing agreements to allow for more time to negotiate new longer-term agreements. And the recommendation, which I'm not finding right here because I didn't look at my package earlier because I knew all this, is that we endorse the agreements as brought forward. Did I miss that?
Seconder?
That's the recommendation.
It is under recommendation in there. Any further discussion? Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Day or the Chief. And it's just a wording thing with the Town of View Royal. It says mutual aid agreement, but I believe it's an automatic aid agreement.
Through the chair, if I may answer that. We have two with Royal. The auto aid is perpetual agreement and does not expire. The mutual aid agreement is on a renewal cycle. The auto aid is for standing parameters. Mutual aid is for when we call for other resources.
Okay.
Full calls or something else. So there are two different things.
Perfect. Great. Thanks for the clarification.
Thanks, Chief. Any further? Councillor Martin?
Thank you. Through you to the chief. Looking at Appendix A, the fire services fees, are those fees realistic? Are they cash neutral? Are we actually recouping what our actual costs are and vice versa? Or, has this been, I haven't seen the previous, have these rates gone up? Have they gone down?
Through the chair, in answering that, actually the rates have actually gone down. What we've done is, on this one, I've put the rate schedule at the provincial standard as set out to the Office of the Fire Commissioner. They are actually a little bit higher of what our actual cost of doing business is, because we are a combination fire department, primarily volunteer, and we don't pay our volunteers. However, when we're set a rate schedule, we have to set it to something that's realistic to the fire service. So we've set it to the rate set by the Office of the Fire Commissioner provincially. So that gives us our standard that we can go by.
Great, thank you. And just as a quick follow-up, where are we at with our mutual aid? As in, are we requesting more than what we're giving? Are we going out to mutual aid? Does it work out to about 50-50? How is those services working out? And I don't know if we have stats on those.
Through the chair, in the last few years, we've been very, very quiet in mutual aid with our other partners. Part of the reason is our regional partners felt that they didn't want to call us because it would incur a cost. Because we, given council direction of the day, we did go to a fee-for-service with our regional partners, except for View Royal. And that was because at the time, we were being called on as a resource more than we were getting. And that was through several different cycles of crunching the data. And at the time, it was felt that we were being taken a little bit of advantage and subsidizing regional. So we went to a fee-for-service, and our request for service went right down to almost nothing. However, in looking at renewing the mutual aid agreements, because we have nothing in place now in case we need to call in extra resources, this was to get a one-year extension so we can open dialogue about whether current council wants to continue with a fee-for-service or what the feelings are with our neighbors and partners in the mutual aid agreements. However, it's kind of hard to see where the numbers are going to go. In the last week and a half, we've had two requests for service, mutual aid fire right on the border with Machosen, which it could have gone either way. Either it was our address or their address. Turned out it was, you could throw a stone at the building on fire, and it was in Machosen. And just earlier today, we had a call from Langford to assist them. So our regional partners will use us as a resource, whether it's one way, one-sided, or where it goes, we really don't know. Given the amount of growth that we're expecting within Colwood in the next year or two, we really need those agreements in place, and then we see where it goes from there.
Thank you. Any other questions? Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Recommendation on item 6.2.2, noise control bylaw, number 1594. There's been some changes referred again from Protective Services. Councillor Day?
Thank you. Protective Services did look at changes suggested to the noise control bylaw and also the MTI bylaw for the fines associated with that. And the recommendation was that the noise control bylaw number 1594/2016 and the municipal ticket information bylaw amendment number 7, schedules 1 and 8 of bylaw number 1654/2016 be approved as presented and forwarded to the next meeting of council for enactment and first readings.
Seconder, please. Discussion? Councillor Nault first.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. On reviewing the bylaw, I think I found a rather large problem with it. Overall, it's a very good bylaw, but on reading it, I see that a homeowner would be prohibited from doing home maintenance or gardening on Sunday and statutory holidays. The old bylaw said that as long as you weren't doing it for profit, you were allowed. I would like to see the bylaw reviewed and an exemption put in for homeowners working on their own property on Sunday and statutory holidays for a reduced time period, say 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. instead of 7 to 7. But I would like this to be referred back to staff for appropriate wording and a legal review. If there was a reason we took those out, I don't want to make an amendment and then have it come back to us from the lawyers saying this is, so I would move we refer this to staff to investigate the changes I suggest.
And that's fine. Councillor Nault, do you have quick reference to what section so that we can identify that more clearly by chance?
I believe Marcy may have found it for you as section D2. D2? Construction hours? Oh, section 7.
Maybe that's fine.
So, sorry, may I
Just-
just
yep.
ask a question to Councillor Nault? Well, through the chair to Councillor Nault. So, sorry, your perception of what you're saying, would that also include, so if somebody was working on their roof, for example, they would be allowed to, but you're saying a company would not be?
Under the old bylaw, you could do it, but you couldn't hire somebody to do it.
Right, okay.
Under the new bylaw, it would be prohibited for any person to make that noise. And I have a bit of a problem with that, given that most of a good portion of our residents work Monday to Friday, and that only leaves them 2 days of the week to do this kind of stuff, especially if you limit them from doing it after 7 p.m. So I would like to see that exemption to the noise for those short hours on Sunday and stats for homeowners specifically.
So, can you please check for me on the bylaw on our iPads under section 6.1, says construction/commercial noise. Are you interpreting it within that where it has construction on any premises, highway, park, other public place before 7 and at all times Sunday or statutory holidays? Is that where you're?
There is that, and then there's operation of equipment such
I
as
just can't see.
weed whackers and so forth in another section of the bylaw.
But I wonder if it's commercial versus, like, I just. That's why I'm.
I believe
Under
6.1A.
5.1E, using a lawnmower, leaf blower, gas-powered weed eater, or rototiller before 7 a.m. or after 9 p.m. on any day. But if you read further, it prohibits that kind of noise on Sunday and statutory holidays. So, and the definition of construction is sufficiently vague to cover basically doing anything on your home.
Do you need a sec? I'm find a second Councillor Knoll's motion
Yep.
to refer back to staff.
Any other questions or comments from council then? All those in favor, referral back to staff? Thank you. It carries. Where are we? Noise control. 6.3, Planning and Land Use Committee. 6.3.1, report on the 2003 RGS Amendment Bylaw 4124. Referral for municipal acceptance. Staff?
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you is a report that outlines a referral from the Capital Regional District Board to consider a bylaw amendment to the Regional Growth Strategy. And that would be the Regional Growth Strategy as it currently stands, adopted in 2003. This amendment would expand the regional urban containment and servicing policy area into approximately 154 hectares of land currently located in Metchosin, near the border with Langford, northwest of Highway 14. This amendment is part of a broader proposal by the District of Metchosin, Beecher Bay First Nation, and the City of Langford to adjust municipal boundaries to facilitate an economic development opportunity negotiated as part of the treaty process. All CRD member municipalities must accept this RGS amendment bylaw within a 60-day period for it to be enacted. This 60-day period ends in the first week of January 2017. Staff have not identified any major direct implications to the City of Colwood as a result of this amendment. With respect to regional impacts, the staff report includes a regional growth strategy interpretation table prepared by CRD staff that outlines regional pros and cons of this proposal. In closing, Colwood staff have recommended that Council receive this report, determine Council's acceptance or rejection of the proposed regional growth strategy amendment, and lastly, direct staff to prepare a letter to the CRD board accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Day?
I think this is generally a beneficial arrangement that sees a larger than might have been expected to be retained piece of green space and keeps economic development in a place where economic development has been accepted and planned for somewhat. So I would like to move option A, that the city prepare a letter to the CRD board indicating that we accept the proposed regional growth strategy amendment.
Seconder, please.
Second.
Discussion? And I just want to echo what Councillor Day has said, that this is has every bit of potential of a win-win, win all the way around the board. It still does have to go through another process of boundary realignment, which is a separate process that Langford will be undertaking with Metchosin. Call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Finance and Administration, we have one item, latecomer agreement fee, miscellaneous fees and charges bylaw number, or Schedule A. Councillor Trace,
I'll refer that to the engineer.
staff?
Okay. Your worship, members of council, this is a report which is essentially housekeeping in nature. The Latecomers Agreement is an administrative process, a procedure for when we ask developers to build a service. We may ask that developer to build an extended or a larger service than they would otherwise have to. And this allows a process whereby any development that later on benefits from that service, whether it be a sewer or a road, then a fee can be collected from the latecomer developers and given to the original developer. So this process has been in place for quite some time across the province, and we inadvertently missed in the fees and charges update in 2016. We missed this one out, and this is just to include it.
Thank you. Someone to move the recommendation?
I'll move for a recommendation. It's
It's
I believe it's the last paragraph of the report.
Yeah.
To
Miscellaneous
amend
fees and
Schedule
charges
A
bylaw?
by adding the latecomer.
No, just the fees charges. Yeah.
So it's adding the latecomer agreement fee of $1,500, it says in the last paragraph.
Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we are moving into bylaws, starting with bylaw number 1661, first, second, and third readings on miscellaneous fees and charges, bylaw number 1603. This is the addition of those fees to the latecomer agreement.
Move introduction, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Bylaw number 1650, third reading only for Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 155, CD 19 Goldstream.
Move third reading, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. 7.3, bylaw number 1594, first, second, and third readings on the noise control bylaw number 1594, 2016.
That was referred.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one, yeah. Sorry. Thank you very much. And does that also then take? Yeah, the MTI will also drop from there. Moving then to the final bylaw, number 1623, first, second, and third readings for Advisory Planning Commission bylaw number 1623, 2016.
Move introduction, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
I just wanted to note that I voted against it.
Looking for second. Discussion? Councillor Day?
Sorry, I'm a little slow. I just wanted to confirm what the term of the members would be. Was it 2 years? Sorry, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, Your Worship, under Section 8 of the bylaw, we made the amendments that Council had requested, which was to change the appointments to 2-year terms with a maximum continuous tenure of 3 full 2-year terms.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Motion to move in camera. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.